Welcome to another edition of Vigorously with me, of the Alkaline Hands. We have metal in the building. Personally, one of my favorites. I'm stoked. I'm stoked. Thousand Frames is in the building. Specifically, Kelsey is here with us to talk all things music and, of course, all things metal as well. Kelsey, welcome. I'm so glad you're here.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
How did you fall in love with metal first? Because everybody has a particular band or album that like sucked them in somewhere in their teenage years. I feel like is the typical story. What's your story?
Yeah, my band of choice, there were two. One was Linkin Park and the other was Chevelle.
Hell yeah.
And those were, in the new metal genre. And I just really got into it. I really liked there was something about the rawness of it, and it's something that I hadn't experienced in music before then, of listening to my parents' music. There was just that, I guess, that angst that just really spoke to me.
Yeah. Talking about Linkin Park, how are we feeling about the new snippets of music that we're hearing that still have Chester's voice on it? Is it
Man, it
nostalgic?
is it's so bittersweet because I mean, I remember being in my parents' living room and, like, I'd have the Live in Texas album, like, DVD on, and I'd have my guitar, and I'd be imitating what, the guitarist did on stage and, like, pretending that I was rocking out with Chester, so it's bittersweet. I like hearing it, but it does hit that soft spot.
It does. It's just so good to hear his voice again.
It is, it truly
That's all that
is.
mattered to me, really.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, and we know guitar is your chosen instrument. How did you teach yourself? How did you come into that?
Yeah, so I'm self-taught. So, around when I was in 6th grade, I really wanted to play guitar. I had a best friend at the time who played guitar, and he looked really cool doing it. And originally, it was like I wanted to look cool, and I liked the sound of it.
Mm.
And then I have an uncle who's a child of the 60s and 70s that came over to our house one day, and he gave me his classical guitar, which obviously is not electric, but that was like the best day of my life because I
Yes.
could like take it and run with it. And so my parents didn't have money for lessons at the time. So at the time I could go on TV and find these like recorded lessons that were on was on Comcast, and then went online and learned tablature and essentially taught myself. And throughout the years, I've been able to be more disciplined and learn more theory things due to jazz band and just studying it in college.
Oh, cool. What is the secret to that discipline? Because your girl pretty much stopped at like 15 after I
Yeah.
just like the tabs got too intense. The Glenn Tipson's like Judas Priest tabs got a little bit too
Yeah.
intense for me. And then I was like, ah, and I just got
Yeah,
frustrated and kind
no,
of
I
like
think for
gave it up.
me, the discipline became about because I just really, really wanted it. I like
Mm.
anytime I heard like Linkin Park's Meteora album and I heard the guitar parts into it. I was like, "Well, I really wanna do that. I just don't wanna, like, pick up the guitar and, like, put it down. Like, I really want to make that sound." And, like, before then, I was, my parents were trying to get me to do piano, and, like, it just didn't sit with me, and ironically, I'm like, "Maybe I should have stuck with it just to have that, versatility there." But, other than that, I mean, I feel like for me, the discipline was I really wanted to do it. I really wanted to make that sound, to play guitar is something that just became like another ligament on my body once I
Mm.
picked up the guitar and I was like, yeah, this is it.
There's just something, I don't know. I don't know if it's the edge or if it's the aesthetic, but there's something so gravitating about a guitar. You just like
Absolutely.
it just like sucks you in. Even me, even though I don't really play anymore, like I still love it, and it's still always usually the first thing that I look for in
Mhm.
music that I keep coming back to or I keep citing or that ends up being my favorite. How prevalent is guitar or metal or rock or in general how prevalent is it in Denver? I think all of you come from Denver, if I'm not mistaken,
Yes,
right?
that's correct.
Okay,
Mhm.
so tell me about Denver's music scene because Red Rocks looks gorgeous. So I'm like, they
It
must
is
have a scene if
gorgeous.
they've got if they've got a venue like that, there must be a serious scene. Tell me about Denver.
Yeah, Denver is an interesting slate of things because I've grown up in Colorado for the majority of my life, and for a while it was just kind of, you know, your John Denver types or kind of more string
Mm.
cheese incident bands, And I think there's always been like that underground metal hard rock scene that's been there, but nothing that has like evolved into like the Fray, like everybody knows the Fray or something like that,
Mhm.
or 303. And
Yeah.
so what I've witnessed in my time is that there are a lot of bands that are around, my band's age and younger, that have come up, and have taken the scene, kind of by storm, and did things do things their own way. And I think in this what I've seen over the last couple of years is that there's more bands in the scene that are starting to come up and starting to get some notoriety, and that's great
Mhm.
because I feel like in the history of Thousand Frames, it's always been an uphill battle to like get more bands in our scene to really be noticed and have that camaraderie. So I think that has been great, and obviously social media helps because more people are able to connect with each other and say, well, we want to play with show with you, or hey, we really like what you're doing. Let's do some content together. So I think there's more cohesion there. There's definitely more work to be done because still Colorado is very heavy in EDM and jam band and kind of
Okay.
your more indie rock thing, but metal is definitely starting to rise up here.
And social media, it sounds like social media is making that a little bit easier,
Yes,
or it's at least
yes,
helping you meet
yes.
each other.
Yeah, and, like, even, like, post, like, pandemic, for us, we were able to connect with more people via social media. With our newest releases, we've been able to, connect with different Twitch streamers that have streamed our music, and then people who don't live either in the state or country figure out who we are, and that's awesome. So, we're able to have more reach than we've ever been able to do before just because of that conduit there.
Oh, that's so cool. So maybe that has played into why you've been a part of some notable openers. I mean, the list,
Yeah.
like, I read the list on the website: Diamante, Stitched Up Heart, Delane, Red Sun Rising, Butcher Babies. I mean, for me, they stuck out. You've opened for them before. Uh, what were some of the most memorable opening moments that you have? I'd love to hear a new story about working with any of them,
Oh,
really.
man. We've been very blessed and fortunate to do some really cool openers. We actually just got off a weekend mini tour with doing Ice at the Kill. We opened for the first night on
Nice.
Saturday night, and then last night we opened for Adelia's Way, which was really cool. And we'd
I
opened
love it.
for them before. My personal favorite is Red, because Red has been a very prevalent influence in our music. Me and the lead singer Kyle, we met in middle school, and he was the one who showed me Red, and that was the first band I ever heard where they've successfully merged like orchestral electronic elements with the metal hard rock elements, and it blew my mind. And so when we got to open for them, it was like you couldn't tell us anything that day. We thought we had made it. And I still hold that memory dear because it it was like the fuel to my fire to say all this hard work you had done this far, because it was we were 5 years in being a
Mhm.
band when we opened for them, but that 5 years was like, okay, time to take it to the next level. And so it was so validating. And that still remains my favorite.
That sounds beautiful. So wait, your friend, correct me if I'm wrong, your friend from school became their lead singer?
No, 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 no. Kyle and I, who's the lead singer of our band, we
Oh, got it.
know each
Okay.
other since middle school. Yeah, for sure.
Oh, okay, got it. So the two
Yeah.
of you are looking at each other when you get this opportunity, like, ah, I can't
Yeah,
believe this.
we were freaking out, and I remember, we were we had known they were coming into town, and we were just asking and being as, professional as
Begging.
possible, but also just like, "Can we please open for them?" And when we got it, no joke, I sent them edible arrangements because 'cause I'm like, "We wanna thank you for allowing us this opportunity," because, hey, if it worked, it worked.
Apparently it did, and I'm sure you're gonna
Yes.
get the call back because who does that anymore? That's memorable. Like,
Exactly. I'm like, you're gonna remember if you get chocolate covered strawberries from a band.
yum. Yum. I mean, you will make
Yes,
my day. I will do that all day.
absolutely.
That is amazing. So I read an article the other day that just was kind of interesting. Marty Friedman, Megadeth, we all know him. Essentially, Marty
Yeah.
said that like the use of guitar needs to evolve to stay popular. So as a guitarist, I definitely want to chat with you about that. Do you
Oh, yeah.
feel like the future of metal is still very guitar driven as it has been and solos are like super important? Or do you think that's got to evolve and maybe another instrument could take over? Where do you see
I
metal
think
going?
yeah, I think in my time, I feel like we're in kind of a renaissance, if you will, of metal because the last as I mentioned earlier, I feel like the last several years have been kind of like trying to find where we are, and I think bands like Bring Me the Horizon or like a Bad Omens, of course,
Mm,
Sleep Token, where they brought guitar in there and they've done things differently where you'll hear a guitar, but it's not, you know, maybe a Megadeth sort of guitar. And I think we are in an evolution state right now where we're like, I was listening to Unprocessed. There's some
mm.
crazy things going there, or intervals where there's some crazy things going on with the guitar where people are doing some, borderline like virtuosic playing, and
Yeah.
it's like, oh, but it still rocks. Polyphia, there's another great one. And so I think for me as a guitarist, this is a great time because I feel like I'm doing some of the best playing that I've done, because I'm able to the songs that we've been writing and the songs that I listen to, I can play along with them and then figure out, oh, well, I like that technique. How can I integrate it into my playing? And so, where I would like to see it going is, if we can add some new instruments, and I would love to see that happen. But I think as long as the guitar has a home in metal, I think, and people are willing to figure out other things they can do with the guitar, and add maybe different elements of different music genres into it. I think it's going to be healthy.
Yeah, period. I mean, it's always going to
Yeah,
have a home. I don't think
absolutely,
I don't think that's ever going to change. It's just a question of how much do we use it and
for
in
sure,
what way do we use it? Do
absolutely.
we give it a different pedal or a different electronic sound? Do we tweak that? I mean, I saw Animals as Leaders live like last summer and oh my God, Tosin
Nice.
blew me away. Like
Yeah,
I was like,
Tosin.
can I start bowing? Can I start bowing? I mean, really, because like it was just a night of fantastic guitar between
Yeah,
they were touring with Devin Townsend and Dream Theater. So I'm like,
nice. That's a lineup. Now that is a
I
lineup.
mean, it was like, and I'm like, oh my God, John Petrucci just loved me to sleep with Count of Tuscany. I was like in the stands and I felt bad, but I also was like, no, that's probably what he was going for.
Yeah,
Like with
yeah,
the
yeah.
sound. Like, so maybe this is right. But that's just the point. Like, I've watched a bunch of interviews with Tosin where I can see he is so willing to experiment with his sound. And that
Mhm.
is incredibly key. Who's inspiring you when it comes to guitar today? Is Tosin one of those people, maybe?
Gosh, I mean, of course, yeah. But my favorite person is Mark Tremonti. Like I have
Mm,
loved Mark Tremonti for ages.
respect.
And I got I got the opportunity, my husband, for my Christmas gift a few or right before the pandemic hit. I got to do a guitar clinic with him on one of his tours, and that was like life changing because
Wow.
I think there's something so cool, especially like in his solo projects, the way he does like a lot of his riff writing and then adds the melodic part of it where it's still a song that like has like a beginning and middle and end. I love that, and
Yeah.
I'm just blown away by his talent and just what he can do on a guitar. So that has been my go-to guy to this day. Like I love Mark Tremonti.
I know you can tell Mark just is a guy that loves music too. With everything that he's
Yes,
branched out and done, not just solo, but with the groups and other singers, and then a borderline Michael Bublé-esque like project
that
too.
blew my mind, and I'm just
What?
like, I never overplayed a Christmas album like the one he released last year. I was just like, yes, and he was playing some of my favorite tunes. I'm like, this is great. I was in
Yeah,
heaven.
that's someone who loves music, and that's someone that's willing to work on their craft and really like perfect it, and also have a fuck ton of fun with it. Really.
Absolutely. Like I think it's cool when other musicians want to branch out and are welcoming of that. I think so often in metal, it's easy to kind of say, well, metal is just kind of here, and I live in this box. But
Mhm.
I was reading an interview with him, and like I think one of his guilty pleasures is yacht rock, and like I grew up on that stuff with my mom in the car, and so one of his favorite songs is "Night Shift" by Commodores, and I
Mhm.
absolutely love that song. And I'm like, I love that people love things outside the genre because it's like, oh, so you can definitely hear elements of where they're bringing this in or they're bringing
Mm.
this influence in rather than kind of just the same thing that you would usually hear.
Yeah, because it shows that they're human. I mean, we're
Absolutely.
multi-dimensional creatures that
Yes, yes, yes.
like we like different things. I mean, yeah, maybe on a day-to-day basis, it's mostly metal and hip hop for me, but I don't care. I'll bump Maren Morris from a time to time.
Yes, we do.
I'll bump Bob Marley from time to time or Bad
Yeah.
Bunny or whatever. Like whatever. It's just it's a beautiful thing when we can embrace that, and I'm kind of glad that we're starting to see that blurring of the genre line, and definitely in the metal world too, because we needed that, because for so long we've done the subgenre game of, well, it's not prog so I don't care, or well, it's not
Yes.
power metal so it sucks, or it's not thrash so
Yes.
I don't like it. And it's like, no,
It's
anymore it's
so
a blend.
archaic to like pigeonhole yourself in that. And like I know people I had to have been like probably around 2017. I read an article of like, is rock dead? And it must have been a Loudwire article. And
And
I was
Gene
talking,
Simmons said it. Yeah.
yeah, and I was talking to Kyle about this, and like, was about a few weeks ago, and I was like, I don't. It's not dead. It's evolved because people have
Yes.
now realized that you can't just ignore what's like popular, and so when people start adding trap beats to a metal a song like a Sleep Token does, or when
Right.
there's a more pop based structure, I'm like, yeah, it's gonna get people into it because pop is pop for a reason. So it's not like I don't view it as watering it down. If you're willing to write the music that is true to you and that is authentic to what you're trying to put out there and the message that's out there, add whatever element you want. It does not need to be like, a Dawkins power battle,
Right.
power metal thing.
I mean, it's good. It's great. We love it. Like, I'll go back to the
Yeah,
hair metal, no problem. Like, we're always going to love it for what it was, but it's
for
definitely,
sure.
I'm definitely pleased to see the evolution as well, particularly for the female aspect. I mean, we can talk about
Yes.
that. Like, I'm glad that it's not a boys' club anymore. I'm glad
Yes.
that it's not exclusively like men only and men can do this and men can do that. I'm sure you've had those ridiculous moments where you get on stage and they're like, "Oh, are you tuning the guitar for the guitarist?" And you're like, "Excuse me?"
Yeah, just
And
last night actually, 'cause people all just
no,
like, "Oh, I thought you were just, like, tuning it." I'm like, "No, pick it up and
this is
I play it." They're all aghast after they're done, and it's so funny to watch, and, like, I understand, like, I'm definitely a minority in the scene, and there definitely needs to be more representation out there, but, it's it never ceases to amaze me, like, once showtime starts and like, "Oh, she's actually the guitarist in the band."
it's like, have several seats. Just
Yes, have
enjoy.
several seats, please, please,
Several
please.
seats. Just enjoy. I mean, yeah, that gets archaic. It really does. But I appreciate that. I mean, we're starting to see, I think, a little bit less and less and less of it. I do see more of a pop punk element coming in. I do see more female representation coming in. How do you feel about the female representation when it comes to the Black community? Is this something you would love to see more in metal specifically, or rock in general?
Yeah, I would definitely like to see more of it, especially because it's a genre that historically has been rooted in Black music and,
Facts.
going back to, like, Chuck Berry to, like, Muddy Waters, and you see the evolution of that, like, it is within our, musical vocabulary to have that in there. And so I would love to see more representation. Last month on our Instagram, I actually did like a three-part series, like highlighting some of the musicians of color that are in
I saw
bands.
that. Yeah, that was
Yeah.
great.
And I had a great time doing it because I realized like there were bands that I hadn't heard before, but then I realized how many metalcore bands I have heard of that do have that representation, and it made me happy. So I'd love to definitely, have more of that spotlight in there. And it's cool to see what sort of influences come out of that because there's a lot of like R&B elements that end up in there. There's a lot of jazz elements that in there up
Right.
in there, blues. So there's a different variety that I feel like we kind of bring to the table, just because we've been so ensconced in other genres of music. So I definitely would like to see more of that, especially the female side of it as well.
Do you think one of the ways we can see more is by putting yourself out there the way you are and having other Black women look to you and go, okay, she's doing it, I can too.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, if somebody else sees you do it, and like that's how it was for me. I think like my first guitar idol was Jimi Hendrix, and
Mm,
like I was like all like about him, and he's still one of my favorites. And then when I probably in the last 4 years, I realized how many other women that are around my age that are actually doing it. Like a couple off top of my head are Guitar Gabby, and she's amazing, and
mm.
then Diamond of Tetrarch.
I love
She and
Diamond.
I got to meet her, and she's so cool, and it was hilarious. Quick story, it was hilarious because she played, and then when I was walking to the bathroom, there's a bunch of people thought that I was her. So I'm just
Oh
like,
my God.
of course, of course.
I'm
So
glad
I'm
to
just
hear
like,
she was cool in person though. I guess I expect she would
exactly.
be.
Oh, say that again. I'm sorry.
I expect that she would be. She
Oh
seems
yeah,
like
she's
she's
so
very down
cool.
to earth.
Very down to earth, and I think those two like guitars come to mind when I think about black female guitarists and scene. I know I'm missing a lot more, but like I saw them and I was like, oh, so there are people exactly around my age that are doing this and have made it out of like the garage band era and are doing this seriously and touring, and not to denounce garage bands, not that's not what I'm
But
trying
I
to
get
do,
what you're
but
saying though. It's leveling up.
yeah, leveling up to the point where people are looking at them and saying, "Oh, I can do this as well." And so that's what I aspire to do, is to be somebody's like, "Oh, Kelsey's doing it. Well, heck yeah, I can be who I am and pick up the guitar and rock the hell out of the place."
Yeah. Can we also talk about how much fun it must have been to make the video for Love's Run Out of Time? I watched the BTS on YouTube. Love
Yep.
that you can grab a purge mask for $3 on Temu. Did not know until
Yes,
that video.
yes. Oh my god. That was such a fun video.
It looked fun, but like in all seriousness, I love what the final product came out to be. You could do a lot with those cheap masks and a green screen.
Yes,
Tell me,
yes.
tell me about the making of that video. That had to be fun.
Yeah, so we made that video in October of last year. That was actually at Kyle's house.
Mm,
He lives with his family and his in-laws, so they all share like one big, huge, huge house. And so he had we had the idea. We were originally going to do it like at a different like studio, and then he's like, well, we could use my garage and then set it up for blackout, and then use the scenery to kind of set the tone. And so we have been working with this guy Mike Lawrence since 2019. He's done all of our music videos, and we told him what mood we're going for, what sort of message we're trying to relay, and he's like, got it. So we got those $3 Timu masks and created a narrative where it was like us in the masks, everybody is like the overlords looking at everything with blind faces, and then us
mm,
in our normal garb, just like talking about what's going on. And it is, I mean, I remember getting goosebumps when I saw the proof at the end of it. I was just elated and blown away. And
yeah.
so it was fun because we have another guy, his name's Danny Fuentes, who does behind the scenes, who shot the behind the scenes stuff. And we it was cold, and we got to just be silly and have a good time, but also make something that we're extremely proud of.
I would be proud of it too. I mean, the lighting, because it looks like it was filmed almost as the sun was going down.
Yep,
I
that's
mean,
where it was. Yep,
and it
that was
would,
the first shot we filmed too.
Wow. And I was like, oh,
Yeah.
they really captured that. What do you think makes that the most poignant video you've made? Because you guys have said that.
Yeah, I think really the imagery that we were able to use, because we juxtapose us performing and us in our masks with like stock images of or stock footage of things happening on in the world, and to us it's important to like talk about things that are happening, and not in a way where we're trying to be preachy or anything like that, but
Right, right.
we want, I think we're consider ourselves a generation that wants to create change, and still wants to strive towards that. And so it was important for us to create a song and create the visuals to a song that relate that message of like making sure you're still standing up for people, and love is good, but love is not enough to make change. You have to actually go and do the change. So
Okay.
that was the title of like Love's Right on Time, is like, yeah, everybody wants to spread love and that's all good, but you also have to put the action towards it as well. And
Yeah,
so
that makes
yeah,
sense. It makes
yeah.
sense with the title now, and I'm glad you called out, the how our generation is really feeling about this too. Because diving deeper into the song, I gravitated toward we shouldn't have to struggle to survive. Every
Mhm.
millennial and Gen Zer like knows what that
Yes.
means.
The song is for millennials and Gen Zers.
It really
Well,
is.
obviously for everybody, but like when I wrote it after a tragedy that happened 2 years ago, and I was just
Mm.
like, "There's got to be." It was a shooting that happened in Buffalo, and I was like, "There's got to be
Oh, I
something."
remember.
Yeah, there's got to be something that I can do with this sadness and anger that I felt, and so it started out with there's a sampling website that I go to like start songs at. And so I sampled the beginning part where there's a bunch of talking, and then the beginning synths is what I built the song off of. And then from then it goes into the magnum opus that is the song. I'm really proud of that song just in general. I think it's doing what I want it to do. It's doing what
Hmm.
we're wanting it to do, and the visuals, as I said, I could not be more prouder. We're very fortunate to be working with Mike, who is a phenomenal artist. He'll beat himself up over things that aren't
Every artist does.
normal,
Every
but
creative
I'm just
does.
like, dude, you are so talented. So we are happy to do projects with him. All of the other music videos we'll be putting out this year and beyond will be with him because he is that good.
Oh, that I love that. It does resonate. I mean, I remember there was a point where it felt like there was a shooting monthly, if not weekly.
Yeah,
And then
absolutely.
I'm in Minnesota, so we kind of got a front row seat to George Floyd too,
Oh yeah,
which
yeah.
was it was absolutely horrendous.
Yeah,
Absolutely
and like
horrendous.
I wrote a song in 2020 after that called "Better Late Than Never." This was like we weren't playing shows as a thousand frames, so I like needed an
Yeah.
outlet, and so that one was like the testing the waters to see if I could do it and do it in a way that felt authentic and not like too kumbaya cheesy. And once I figured out, okay, I can do this, and you can trust yourself to write a song that has like a deeper meaning and a deeper message, then I felt compelled that Love's Run Out of Time came right after that. And it took me no time to write the lyrics. Um, I'm really proud of myself with that. My favorite line in that song is "Heavy is the crown in the home of the brave," because I'm like, that nails it. That's all I needed right there.
Yeah. I mean, everybody else will look and think it's immensely perfect here, and
Yes.
Americans will like sit back and go, "Oh, we got our issues
Yeah,
though.
yeah.
We got our issues. We got our issues." But
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah,
think it's
exactly.
I think it's like that with every country, but I think that that's the purpose that music should serve, or any form of art should serve. It should be a reflection and borderline critique of what's going on. So, because that's the way
Mhm.
it's going to resonate. I mean, that's what makes sense to me anyway. That's why I gravitate toward specific artists or songs that I do, because they are sharing in that frustration or that
Sure.
joy. Either way.
Sure. Yeah. And like I grew up listening to Motown with my parents and classic
Oh
rock.
yeah.
And I remember hearing all of Marvin Gaye's album. And the name
Hmm.
escapes me right now, but we all know that one with What's Going On, that whole album.
Oh
What's
yeah.
Going
Yeah,
On?
yeah.
There you go. And I was just mesmerized. Like he wasn't playing guitar or anything, but the way he was singing these songs that were indicative of a time in the 70s where it was like the Vietnam War and whatnot going on,
Right.
and he was able to evoke such emotion in these songs to where it like gets you in that space. I'm like, whatever he's doing, I want to do that too, because that is the magic of music to me. Whereas you can get into a space where you really feel like you're there. You feel like you're living that sort of reality that the artist is talking about.
Yeah, and on top of that, it gets even creepier when you're like, "Wait a minute, he's singing about things that are still relevant today,
Yeah,
that
yeah,
we're still
right,
like,
right?
the first like, when I went to I saw Straight Outta Compton in the theater when it came out, like, in 2015
Yeah,
or whatever, and I'm like, "Holy shit, all these NWA songs, like,
are still relevant. Yes.
you could be you could be playing them today, and you could say the same thing about Trayvon Martin, or you know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
you could
absolutely.
still be just as pissed about the same things today as you were 25 years ago. And a part of that,
Absolutely.
like a part of that made me proud of Cube and Dre and everybody, because that meant they created something. But then I got a little sad too, because it's like, well, damn, that's not really a good thing if we're able to
No.
say that it's been 25 years and we could still say this context and this, it's relevant now.
Yeah, and
Like
I
things haven't
love their
changed.
music. I absolutely loved, that whole era of rap was just, like, something
Yeah.
that I don't think can be replicated. It was just so raw, it was in your face, and I loved everything about it.
So beautiful. Well, what's next
Yeah.
for you? What's next for 1000 frames? What can we look forward to?
Sure. So we are coming out with a single in April, and we have Josie Scott, who's going to be a part of that, actually from Saliva.
Wow, that's
So that will
cool.
be really awesome. And then the next single we'll have after that will be in May, and that will feature Alexia from Isaac to Kill. So we've got some singles coming out. Our album will be out in August, and we'll be playing shows up until May so we can get ready until for our album release in August. So that's
Ah,
what we're doing and just finishing up things for the album and uh continuing to enjoy connecting with new people that we never got to connect with before. So this is really cool for a cool time for us.
yeah, it's so exciting. I can't wait to see what's next for all of you. I'm definitely going to be down for the album release. Kelsey, thank you for your time. Thank you for being with me. This
Yes,
was so fun.
absolutely. Anytime.